When Jake Sullivan became Portland's most skilled carpenter, homeowners trusted him to build their dream additions. But when his gambling addiction and insurance fraud schemes consumed him, he began sabotaging structures and murdering witnesses who discovered his crimes, turning construction projects into deadly collapse traps. Before starting the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now, let's get back to the video. The Pacific Northwest rain drummed steadily against the windows of Portland's affluent West Hills neighborhoods as Jake Sullivan organized his carpentry tools and construction materials for what would become the most dangerous building project of his 25-year career as Oregon's most experienced residential carpenter and custom construction specialist. At 48 years old, Jake had established himself as Portland's premier custom carpenter, specializing in luxury home additions and historic renovation projects that attracted wealthy homeowners, architectural firms, and preservation societies who valued his expertise in complex woodworking and his reputation for creating stunning custom construction that enhanced property values significantly. Jake's carpentry workshop occupied a converted warehouse in Portland's industrial Southeast District, featuring state-of-the-art woodworking equipment, premium lumber inventory, and specialized tools for handling the intricate carpentry challenges common in the region's diverse architectural styles, ranging from Victorian mansions to contemporary eco-homes. His clientele included tech executives building elaborate home offices, wealthy retirees creating custom entertainment spaces, and historic property owners whose renovation projects demanded expert knowledge of traditional building techniques combined with modern safety standards. The interior of Jake's workshop reflected his mastery of fine carpentry and his understanding of discerning clients' expectations for both craftsmanship excellence and project reliability, featuring walls displaying awards from carpentry associations, photographs of completed luxury projects, and testimonials from grateful homeowners whose property values had increased substantially through his custom construction work. His work truck contained professional-grade tools, premium materials, and insurance documentation that emphasized his commitment to safety and quality construction practices. But beneath Jake's reputation for carpentry excellence lay a dangerous combination of compulsive gambling, insurance fraud operations, and calculated murder that had transformed his construction projects into criminal enterprises where threatening homeowners and suspicious investigators met their fate through structural sabotage and deliberately engineered building failures. "Good morning, Jake," said Patricia Hoffman, his 9 o'clock client and a 63-year-old retired attorney whose custom deck and outdoor kitchen project had been under construction for 6 months, with costs escalating far beyond the original estimate due to what Jake claimed were unexpected structural complications requiring extensive additional work. Patricia had grown suspicious of the project delays and cost overruns after consulting with other contractors who suggested the complications were either unnecessary or deliberately created. "Good morning, Mrs. Hoffman," Jake replied with the craftsmanship authority and construction expertise that had made him legendary among Portland's wealthy homeowners, who viewed him as both artisan and structural engineer, capable of creating custom additions that seamlessly integrated with existing architecture while enhancing both functionality and property value. "I've solved the foundation issues we discussed, and today I'll be installing the support beams that will ensure your deck can safely handle the weight loads for your outdoor entertaining needs." Patricia had become Jake's most dangerous customer, not because of her demanding construction requirements or her budget constraints, but because of her recent discovery of substandard materials and her growing awareness of the insurance fraud operation that Jake had been conducting while supposedly providing legitimate construction services. What Patricia didn't know was that Jake had been systematically defrauding homeowners and murdering suspicious clients for over 4 years, using his carpentry expertise and access to structural systems to sabotage buildings while collecting insurance payouts when construction failures caused property damage or personal injury. Jake's transformation from skilled carpenter to calculating killer had begun 6 years earlier, when his compulsive gambling addiction at tribal casinos had escalated from weekend entertainment to daily poker and slot machine sessions that consumed his carpentry income and forced him into desperate debt with organized crime figures who controlled Oregon's illegal gambling operations. His losses had accumulated to over $400,000, with loan sharks demanding immediate payment and threatening violence against his family if he couldn't generate substantial income through criminal activities. Faced with impossible financial demands and credible threats of violence, Jake had begun using his construction expertise to conduct systematic insurance fraud operations, deliberately sabotaging structural work to cause building failures that would generate insurance claims while using substandard materials and inflated labor costs to maximize profits from construction projects. His criminal activities had escalated when several homeowners had discovered evidence of deliberate sabotage and had threatened to report their suspicions to licensing authorities and law enforcement agencies investigating construction fraud patterns targeting wealthy Portland residents. Jake had murdered his first victim, a structural engineer who had detected deliberately weakened support beams, by staging a fatal construction accident using sabotaged scaffolding during what appeared to be routine safety inspection work. The success of his first murder had convinced Jake that eliminating suspicious clients and threatening investigators was both necessary for protecting his fraud operation and relatively easy to accomplish given his construction knowledge and access to building sites where accidents could be staged using structural failures and equipment malfunctions. Over the following 4 years, Jake had murdered 12 additional individuals using various methods that took advantage of his carpentry expertise, his access to construction sites during vulnerable building phases, and his ability to stage deaths as construction accidents or building failures that would not attract detailed investigation by overwhelmed safety inspection agencies. His victims had been carefully selected based on their discovery of his fraudulent activities, their potential cooperation with authorities, and their involvement in construction projects that provided opportunities for structural sabotage and witness elimination. His victims had included Dr. Robert Martinez, an architect who had discovered evidence of substandard construction and whose site inspection had resulted in fatal injury from deliberately sabotaged construction equipment. Jennifer Chen, a homeowner who had reported suspicious construction practices and whose custom staircase had collapsed due to intentionally weakened structural connections, and David Williams, a building inspector who had been investigating construction fraud and whose site visit had ended in fatal accident from rigged power tools. "Jake, I need to discuss some serious concerns about construction accidents and reports of insurance fraud connected to your carpentry projects," said Detective Maria Rodriguez of the Portland Police Department's Fraud Division, as she arrived at Patricia's construction site, carrying warrants to inspect Jake's work and interview him about suspicious activities. Detective Rodriguez specialized in investigating construction fraud and had developed expertise in recognizing patterns of deliberate structural sabotage that exploited homeowners' trust and building code vulnerabilities. Detective Rodriguez's investigation represented an existential threat to Jake's criminal operation, as her law enforcement expertise and access to construction fraud databases could expose the systematic sabotage operations and connect him to multiple suspicious construction accidents and homeowner deaths. "Of course, Detective Rodriguez," Jake replied, though he felt the familiar surge of gambling addiction withdrawal and criminal desperation that accompanied any official scrutiny of his construction operations by law enforcement officers who possessed the training and resources to detect evidence of structural sabotage and systematic murder disguised as construction accidents or building failures. "Construction safety and building integrity are always my highest priorities, and I want to cooperate with any investigation that might help protect homeowners and ensure that construction services operate according to all applicable building codes and safety standards." Detective Rodriguez consulted detailed reports from construction accident investigations and insurance fraud analysts that showed patterns of structural failures and homeowner deaths that suggested systematic sabotage rather than random construction hazards or legitimate building accidents during routine carpentry work. "Jake, I've been investigating reports of construction accidents and insurance fraud that appear to be connected to building projects where you've provided carpentry services," Detective Rodriguez said with the investigative precision that had made her successful in solving complex fraud cases. 12 individuals who were involved in construction projects with your carpentry business have died in building accidents or structural failures, with several of these deaths occurring immediately after the victims had discovered substandard materials or had expressed concerns about suspicious construction practices during your building work. The detective's identification of the sabotage patterns and her recognition of the timing correlation between construction complaints and structural failures confirmed Jake's worst fears that his criminal activities had been analyzed and connected to his systematic elimination of suspicious clients and deliberate engineering of building failures for insurance fraud. Jake's response was swift and deadly, as he realized that eliminating Detective Rodriguez was essential for protecting his criminal enterprise and preventing exposure of his systematic construction fraud and murder operations. "Detective Rodriguez, I think there may be some misunderstanding about the inherent dangers of construction work and the unfortunate reality that building accidents can occur despite proper safety protocols and professional expertise," Jake said, while discreetly reaching for a modified nail gun that he had weaponized to fire steel nails with lethal velocity for emergency elimination of law enforcement threats. "Perhaps we could examine some specific structural installations where I can demonstrate the safety procedures that might explain these tragic accidents. Construction work involves complex engineering considerations that might appear suspicious to those unfamiliar with building techniques and structural load calculations." Detective Rodriguez agreed to examine Jake's construction work, not realizing that the carpenter was leading her to an isolated area of the construction site where previous murders had been committed and where Jake planned to kill her using his modified nail gun during what would appear to be accidental discharge of construction equipment. Jake's plan involved convincing Detective Rodriguez to examine specific structural elements while explaining construction procedures, then using his weaponized nail gun to fire lethal projectiles that would cause fatal injuries while appearing to be accidental contact with construction tools rather than deliberate murder by a carpenter protecting his fraud operations. But Jake's carefully planned murder of the detective was about to be prevented by the unexpected arrival of federal agents who had been investigating organized gambling networks and had identified connections to his construction business. Special Agent Michael Torres of the FBI's Organized Crime Division had been conducting a comprehensive investigation into gambling-related fraud and violence that exploited legitimate construction businesses to launder money and eliminate potential witnesses to criminal activities. Agent Torres specialized in investigating gambling-related crimes and had developed expertise in tracking criminal construction operations that were used to facilitate organized gambling debts and witness elimination. The federal investigation had been initiated by reports from multiple financial institutions and gambling regulators who had noticed patterns of construction-related money movement and suspicious deaths that suggested organized criminal networks were using construction businesses to launder gambling profits while eliminating threats to their operations. Agent Torres had been conducting surveillance of Jake's gambling activities and construction projects, and had documented evidence of systematic fraud, gambling debt management, and suspicious patterns of client deaths that suggested his carpentry expertise was being used for organized criminal activity rather than legitimate construction services. "Jake Sullivan, I'm Special Agent Torres with the FBI," he announced as he approached the construction site where Jake was preparing to murder Detective Rodriguez. "I have federal warrants for your arrest on charges of organized fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and multiple counts of first-degree murder related to your systematic exploitation of construction services for criminal activities and elimination of potential witnesses." Jake's reaction to the federal agent's intervention was a combination of construction authority, confusion, and desperate attempts to maintain his carpentry credibility as he realized that law enforcement agencies at multiple levels had been investigating his gambling activities and had connected them to systematic client murders and organized construction fraud. His carefully maintained reputation as a skilled carpenter, had failed to protect him from comprehensive investigation by agencies with expertise in gambling-related crimes and construction fraud. Special Agent Torres, there must be some serious misunderstanding about legitimate construction work and the complex engineering challenges involved in custom carpentry projects that meet both safety requirements and client design expectations, Jake said frantically while abandoning his plan to shoot Detective Rodriguez and attempting to preserve some semblance of professional credibility, despite the overwhelming evidence against his criminal activities. I am a licensed contractor with 25 years of experience providing custom carpentry services for Portland's most discerning homeowners. All of my construction work complies with established building codes and safety standards designed to protect occupants while ensuring structural integrity and long-term durability. Detective Rodriguez looked absolutely stunned as she realized how close she had come to being murdered by the carpenter she'd been investigating for construction fraud. Her fraud investigation had not only exposed Jake's systematic sabotage and murder operation, but it also prevented her own death at the hands of a killer who had been using construction services as cover for systematic elimination of clients and law enforcement threats. The comprehensive investigation that followed Jake's arrest revealed the full scope of his criminal enterprise and the sophisticated methods he had developed to exploit carpentry expertise for systematic fraud and murder. Forensic analysis of Jake's construction operations revealed extensive evidence of his fraud activities, including stockpiles of substandard building materials, sophisticated tools for structural sabotage, and detailed records showing coordination between deliberate building failures and insurance claim filings. His workshop contained weaponized construction equipment, gambling debt documentation, and comprehensive files containing information on wealthy homeowners who had been targeted for systematic fraud and murder. The investigation also uncovered Jake's connections to organized crime figures who had been coordinating gambling debt collection and money laundering operations while using his construction business to eliminate potential witnesses to their criminal activities through structural sabotage and construction accidents. Most disturbing was the discovery of Jake's detailed knowledge of structural engineering and building codes, which he had used to identify optimal methods for causing building failures while concealing evidence of deliberate sabotage through techniques that made structural collapses appear as construction accidents or material defects. Jake Sullivan was ultimately convicted of 13 counts of first-degree murder, systematic construction fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit organized criminal enterprise activities, and numerous other charges related to his exploitation of carpentry services for criminal activities and elimination of potential witnesses. The conviction sent unprecedented shockwaves throughout Portland's construction industry, prompting immediate reforms in contractor licensing, building inspection protocols, and gambling addiction prevention measures designed to protect homeowners from exploitation by trusted construction professionals involved in criminal activities. Several other carpenters and construction contractors were investigated for similar criminal activities, resulting in enhanced oversight of construction projects and new requirements for materials verification, structural inspection, and homeowner protection measures that made it more difficult for criminals to exploit construction services for systematic fraud and murder. Detective Rodriguez and Special Agent Torres received recognition for their collaborative investigation and became specialists in construction crime investigation, developing new techniques for identifying fraud operations and protecting homeowners from exploitation by criminal construction professionals. Patricia Hoffman and other surviving clients required extensive structural inspections and construction remediation to overcome the trauma of learning that their trusted carpenter had been systematically sabotaging their homes and murdering clients while exploiting his construction access for organized criminal activities. The construction industry implemented comprehensive new safety protocols designed to protect clients from exploitation by unethical contractors. The case prompted comprehensive changes in construction regulation, including mandatory background checks and gambling addiction screening for all contractors, enhanced oversight of building materials and structural work, real-time inspection monitoring of construction projects, and new reporting procedures for suspicious construction activities involving client safety or potential fraud indicators. Jake's conviction also led to increased cooperation between construction industry organizations and law enforcement agencies, investigating organized crime, with new protocols designed to identify construction services that might be exploiting their building access for systematic criminal activities while eliminating potential witnesses. The carpentry and broader construction industries implemented revolutionary new safety measures, including enhanced screening procedures for contractors, comprehensive homeowner protection programs, mandatory reporting of suspicious construction activities, and improved training for recognizing signs of gambling addiction and criminal behavior among construction professionals. 5 years after Jake's conviction and life imprisonment, Portland's construction community continued to implement safeguards designed to protect homeowners from contractors who might abuse their positions of trust and structural expertise for criminal purposes. The carpenter, who had promised to build beautiful and safe additions to homes, had instead used his construction expertise and building access to commit systematic fraud and murder while exploiting homeowners' trust and vulnerability during major construction projects. However, his crimes had been thoroughly exposed and his victims had found justice through the dedication of investigators who refused to accept construction accidents as mere building mishaps. Jake Sullivan's final nail had been driven into the coffin of his criminal enterprise as he faced life imprisonment without possibility of parole, proving that even construction professionals who attempted to exploit their building expertise for criminal gain could be identified, investigated, and brought to justice when dedicated law enforcement agencies worked together to protect innocent homeowners from predatory contractors. The carpenter's final nail had permanently secured the door of justice, serving as a lasting reminder that those entrusted with building our homes must never abuse that sacred responsibility, and that construction professionals who would exploit homeowner vulnerability for criminal gain will ultimately face the full consequences of their betrayal of building integrity and public safety. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.